So to me, I feel like when the church or when science steps in and says, well, you can't have any physical contact. I mean, even in the old days, the leopards had people that were taking care of them, man. I mean, like, all the
He's a
lepers.
leper. Okay, hang all the lepers
Yeah,
together.
Coming to you from 125 Carver in Waco, Texas, it's the Riverside Weekly. We hope your time with us today is thought-provoking, spiritually challenging, and a life-changing experience. Our discussions are fun, real, and at times very uncomfortable. We highly encourage all of our guests and listeners to like and subscribe, and please ring the bell. Now, here are your hosts, Pastor Cello and Pastor Mia.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Yay.
We are back.
Yay. So glad to be back.
Podcast Wednesday. Hump day. We here, yo.
Yeah, I think this kind of...
survived.
We survived, yeah. This is kind of like that last episode or a couple of episodes back where we said we're not 100%,
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that we were preparing for this.
Well, I
So
don't know
in
about
case you didn't
preparing.
know, well, yeah. But in case you didn't know, we've been gone for the last 2 weeks. In case you missed us,
I know y'all did. Y'all missed us.
well, I don't know how many subscribers we lost.
I don't know if we lost any subscribers.
Okay, we'll see if they come back because we only had 2 text messages. Hey, where the podcast at? So, shout out to Miss Sabrina for always being faithful about asking us where we at, what did we do. Natalie used to do that too. Remember Fran used to say, hey, I need a 5 a.m. podcast. Where you at?
Yeah.
So, anyway, shout out to you guys for our
Appreciate
faithful
you guys,
listeners.
all our faithful subscribers.
Yes.
We're still pressing towards that 1,000. So we broke the 500 mark. We're like 540 something.
Yay.
So man, appreciate you guys.
400 and something left. Woo!
Yes.
All right. But we made it. So in just case, I didn't say it yet, but so I had COVID, and so we've been gone for 2 weeks under quarantine. Thank God we're out, and thank God we made it.
Yes.
What do I always say? Still alive.
Still alive.
Yeah. Shout out to my FCF people because there is one lady that always sees me and she always says, still alive? I'm like,
alive.
still alive. So thank God we made it. Thank you for all your prayers. Thank you for all your door deliveries and drop-offs.
Yes, burritos, you know who you are.
The people that spend their time at Spiciness in his new truck. Anyway, and shout out to Romy and Andrew. Man, thank you. You guys, we tried to go outside, me and my son, to help them. And finally, I had to just yell at my son and say, get back in the house because we don't need you spreading your germs to no one. Thank you so much for bringing us waters.
Everybody brought us.
I know.
We have the best congregation.
We really do.
I don't know about
Anybody else?
I don't know about Transformation Church or Live Church or any of these other big name pastors, but we definitely have the best congregation.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yes.
For us.
Thank you for the burritos and the soup and the chicken
vitamins
and
and all sorts of stuff.
oh
Everybody
man,
brought
the
all sorts of stuff.
Jasons
Yeah.
and all kinds of stuff. The waters and the vitamins and the breathing machine and apparatus and everything. Man, I know that Tori doesn't listen to this podcast. But
We don't need universal health care. We just need really good people in your church. That's what we need. Just really good people in the church.
Yes.
and
Yes. And thank you for all of the encouraging words. If you sent us text messages or just told us you were praying for us or any of that. I got diagnosed with COVID. Pastor Cello did not, but he decided to quarantine with me, and he ended up with a sniffle and no taste.
Mostly cough.
Yeah. Well,
had a cough.
now you have a post-nasal drip is what it's called.
But just had a cough and lost my taste for a couple of days. But when someone asked me the other day, they what was it like? Was it the really one of the worst illnesses? Or I don't know if I could say that. I'm not belittling anybody else's
Right.
walking through it or overcoming
Right.
or whatever terminology you want to use. But for me, it was just a really long cold or a flu.
A flu.
Which I learned, which I thought this is very interesting.
What?
That the flu or influenza is one of the most deadliest pathogens or viruses,
Okay.
quote unquote, that we have on the earth,
Okay.
but yet we make very, very light of the severity of it when it comes to being quote unquote deadly. But people used to die because of
Influenza.
well, influenza. And there are still people that do, but people used to die and be terminally ill just because of a common cold.
Yep. And chickenpox.
And,
Chickenpox
you
was
know, and
huge.
so
Measles. What's another?
just there was just so much information
Yeah.
that people were sending about the COVID and the coronavirus, like all these different things. And when you're on lockdown for 14 days, you have the opportunity to watch a lot, read a lot, listen to a lot, and I think it's just interesting. Not that it's not a serious illness or that it can be very detrimental to somebody's health,
Yeah.
but I think experiencing it myself, I think um, I don't I don't want to say it's not as bad as I thought it was, or not that I was afraid of it or anything, but just the most difficult thing was breathing.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're out of breath all the time and exhausted. For me, cough and then losing my smell and taste for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
That was like the worst of it. But for me, it was like an extended flu or an extended cold.
Yeah.
But that's me. So my personal thoughts on everything with the
Now that you've been through it,
now that I've
you've
been
walked through it.
walked through it, and everything. I think for myself, I feel like whether you get the COVID shot or not, get the vaccine or not, I think for me, this is just me. I'm not no scientific whiz, or like I'm not no all these different people that I know, and
Okay.
I'm not what do you call it? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a viral specialist,
Oh, okay. Okay.
anything like that. But to me, I liken it like the flu or like a common cold from my experience. So I think at some point in time, everybody on this planet is going to come in contact with the flu. Somebody's going to come in contact with a common cold. And I think that somebody and everybody's going to come in contact with COVID.
Well, I think it's
Whether you agree with vaccination or not,
yeah.
whether you agree with quarantine or not. Like
I don't know. I feel like the reason that I said we should talk about this and let our listeners know that
I didn't even ask what we were talking about.
well, that's what we're talking about.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that we had COVID. I had COVID. You did not. And I really thought that
I wouldn't say I didn't.
well, we
I didn't
don't
get
know.
tested.
Yeah, he didn't get
I'll
tested.
just say that I didn't get tested.
And I think it's funny that I thought it was a sinus infection, and a lot of people think that because that's how it starts out. You don't know. We're just used to the people with sinus infections or the bouts of it, kind of like I've dealt with the flu, I've dealt with the cold type thing. When you get used to the sinus infection, you know the symptoms, you know when they're coming. So immediately, that's what I thought it was, right? And so I went in for a test for that, and my doctor immediately was like, no, you can't come inside in here, but you can go through the drive-through test facility. I'm like, why? And then they took my blood, they did a chest x-ray, and I tell y'all, guys, I mean, I love Jesus, but this lady shoved this stick up my nose, and she told me, quit moving, and I said, well, Jesus, lady! I mean, I didn't mean to yell at her, but I mean, I was like, I think you do this job because you like hurting people, not because you want to do anything.
That's
but
funny.
Anyway, I just thought it was funny. But I will say this, that I did learn that COVID is different for different people. Like my mom had it, my father had it. Everybody had it differently. No one have I found that has had it the same.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think it's. I mean, people are gonna get upset with me, but I think it's like the flu. You have a cold; it affects people different way.
Yeah.
Like like when you get a flu, people have different effects of the flu. Like some people it just knocks them down, and they're struggling to gather their thoughts and their respiratory system, immune system, everything. And I think COVID is kind of the same thing. I think the Rona, I think, is kind of the same thing where it just affects everybody different. I had fever for like a day, maybe 2 days, and that was it. But
And you never have fever, so
I don't ever get sick.
I know, I know,
So
I
very
know.
rarely do I get sick.
I
So
know.
for me, I didn't really feel or experience any symptoms after like, I guess probably day 3 or 4 into the quarantine. So I was like, just like, I know personally, I was like, I'm doing this because of my family and friends and just trying to be socially correct for the most part, just quarantining and staying
Yeah.
away from everybody. But I think, I don't know, I think it's just, for me, it wasn't as, I don't want to say it wasn't as bad.
Okay, but that's you.
No, I'm
That's-
just saying, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not saying like I'm discarding like how severe it is or,
Yeah, no,
people
I
deal
just,
with it.
I
Like,
think it just has to do with your body.
yes, but I do, now I will say this, people can get upset with me. I do feel like we as a society and a culture, even, I'll say this even globally, I think that we're allowing people to blow this thing up way more than we need to from the perspective of the severity of it. Like when I realized that influenza was like one of the major
Deadly
deadliest
viruses.
pathogens, and we literally treat the flu
Like a fever.
like a fever or a cold,
Yeah.
common cold. Like that's how we respond to that today,
Yeah.
21st century.
Yeah.
So when I experienced that, I'm going, well, man, it's just a really, really bad flu. Like I get that. So I think when we're talking about wearing masks and getting vaccines and quarantining and all that type of thing, I'm not saying that you need to take precautions. I'm saying that I just think that there's a lot of fear instilled into our culture today.
But the TV's been saying that. The TV's been saying about, how people are misinformed and this and that. And then this is where I'm going to go with all of this.
Oh, here we go.
Yes. So
Come on, CNN, Fox News.
I'm just saying. Listen, one doctor, one of my friends told me that her doctor, she thought she had the Rona, so she went to go get checked out, and her doctor told her, listen, it's not a matter of if you have it, it's a matter of when you're going to get it. And her doctor told her that, okay?
Makes sense.
So then another friend of mine told me, she said, Pastor Mia, everybody, their body reacts differently to it. And she said, what I noticed is that when you don't know that you have it, you just treat it like any common cold or any flu. But when you're told that you have it, the fear that was already there starts building and building and
Absolutely.
building. And I will say this.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Okay, this is what I'm going to say to that. If my aunt had not been texting me and encouraging me to get up, I would have stayed down. Because even you were like, Mia, you got to eat. And guys, I could not eat. I just could not
No
eat.
appetite.
Yeah, no appetite. And finally, my aunt was like, come on, get out your bed, wash your sheets. I'm like, woman, I can barely even pick up my head. How you want me to wash my sheets? I can't, and I'm just like, lethargic. But before that, I wasn't like that. It wasn't until after they told me that. So
I think because I agree. I think it
Just
works. I think that it works on you psychologically. I think
Yeah.
it works on you emotionally.
Yeah.
I think it works on you spiritually.
Yeah.
Socially, like
Yeah.
all these things. I think they compound. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that one lady that you worked with. She was having stomach issues for a couple of months.
oh yeah, wow,
Like,
guys.
4 or 5
Guys.
months having stomach issues, and was just taking all kinds of different things and would go to work and feel better,
Yep.
would have no issues.
Yep.
And then finally the pain just got to where it was unbearable. So she goes to the doctor. They tell her she has
Stage 4 cancer.
stage 4 cancer and she's
1
gone
month.
inside of
1
30
month.
days.
1 month.
Like literally when she realized that she had cancer,
No, when they told
when
her.
they told her that she had cancer, it hit her so hard mentally,
She just gave
emotionally,
up.
like she just shut down. And I think that's what happens a lot of times when exactly what you said is like, we're okay with a common cold, we're okay with the flu,
Yeah.
but as soon as you say you tested positive for corona or the COVID virus,
Yeah.
it like literally takes a larger toll on you mentally
Yeah.
and emotionally. And I think that's because that's the way we've set up our society and our culture. Like we've we had a whole 8 to 12 months on lockdown and very restricted. Some states are still very
Lockdown,
restrictive
yeah.
on what they can do.
Yep.
But I think it has to do with that mental aspect, that emotional aspect, that spiritual
I
aspect.
can see that. I
You know,
can
that
see
wears you down because, I mean, it.
I had to speak to my body. I'm gonna say that. I had to speak to my body. And again, thank you, Annette, for prodding me, because she really did. And she was just like, speak to your body already, da da da. And I'm like, woman, I can barely even hold up my head. I got type thing. But anytime I couldn't catch my breath, or I would be coughing and starting to have a cough spell, I would tell my body, no. And I just remember laying there and being like, no. And then it would go away. And then I, couldn't catch my breath. And I'm like,
Super powerful. Ooh.
and then I would tell my body, no, Mia, we're not, you can breathe. Slow your breathing down. And I had to literally tell my body, calm down, breathe, take you, and I really had to. And it wasn't until then that I took authority over my body that I just sat there.
To me, that's the other side of it.
Yeah,
So
tell
the
me.
other side of it that you have is where you have the church folks, faith folks
Okay,
that are like,
we're gonna go there because I wanted to talk about.
well, I'm just
that
saying,
too.
like, like you don't really have COVID. Like, you don't, you have authority,
have
take
it.
authority over COVID, and like you're in doubt or disbelief. And I personally, to me, it's not a matter of doubt and disbelief. If you've got a broken leg, you've got a broken leg. Now you can speak for a quick recovery
Yes,
and for healing.
Yes.
But the fact is that you have a broken leg, and
Yeah.
and for
Oh,
us,
it's not broke. Walk on it. Dang it. No,
you
that's not faith.
that's what I'm saying. And so it's the same thing with you being tested positive for COVID. Well, like, she don't have COVID. I'm like, okay, Jesus did not tell the man who was blind,
You're
right?
not blind.
He didn't say you weren't blind. He never said you were not blind.
No.
He spoke to the blindness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then he says, "Can you see?" And the man's like, "No, I can
see
I
men
can
as
see as
trees."
mean as trees." And he's like, "Well, okay, let me lay hands on you again," right? But I think a lot of times in the church community, in the quote unquote faith community, we literally get to a place where we're in what I call what's called, not I call, but what is called mental assent. We mentally ascend to the place where, like, we're in denial of the facts, and we don't want to acknowledge the facts because it's doubt, it's fear,
But that's not
right?
the
Or
truth.
it's unbelief,
Yeah,
and that's not
the
necessarily truth. And
Yeah.
when to me, when they say, well, she doesn't really have COVID, and I'm like, that's like saying, I don't have a broken leg, or that doesn't make any sense. So to me, from that perspective, I think that's some of the harm that's also taking place, is the fact that you've got the ones that are like, mask up, vaccine up, and this whole thing, and then you have the other side, which is just trust God, speak the word.
Don't
like,
wear a mask, walk
yeah,
around,
don't
do
wear
nothing.
a mask,
Yeah,
nothing.
I'm like, no.
And I don't agree with that either. I think that
There are precautions.
there are precautions. I believe that there's common sense and common faith, right? So
Yep.
you should have some common sense to utilize faith. And just because you're using common sense, that doesn't necessarily mean
You're not
that
in
you're
faith.
that you're not in faith and that you're in doubt. And I think that is one of the biggest things that the church struggles with right now, is because during this whole thing, you can speak to COVID. I'm not saying you can't speak to it, but when someone's diagnosed with it or someone is experiencing the symptoms, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in doubt. That doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that they're in unbelief.
Yeah.
That just
I
means that
wasn't
they're
in doubt, and
they're-
I wasn't
they're coming
in
out of this.
unbelief.
Because that would be the same thing as somebody that's walking in unforgiveness and saying, "Man, I'm just trying to forgive them." You're going, "Well, you're in doubt. You're not. You don't have faith."
No, I'm
"Let's-
walking through
the
it.
process."
I'm walking through it.
Exactly, walking
Yeah.
through that process.
It made me think about something else, and I was thinking about that because really this podcast should be, don't say that you understand if you haven't been in those shoes. I never had asthma before. I've never had any lung issues, no coughing issues, no breathing issues whatsoever. But it took a toll on my body. And I had to actually call my sister-in-law, shout out to the Mina, because, she's dealt with asthma all her life.
yeah.
And I had to ask how to give myself a breathing treatment which I've never done because my oxygen level was lower than your oxygen level. And again, it wasn't that I was in doubt, and it wasn't that I wasn't in faith. It's just that for me, my faith is not maybe not where somebody else is. Someone might have aspirin faith where I don't have aspirin faith.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Someone might have great parking faith where I don't have great parking faith.
Gotta have that great parking
That's
faith.
what I'm just saying. I'm just saying different people, different faith levels. And I never took, I took advantage of being at 100% oxygen level and having full capacity of my lungs until then. Now I'm just like, whoa, that's what you dealt with? Oh my gosh, sister. How did you even breathe on a normal basis? How do you even, she's like, I'm used to it, and I'm just like, well, okay, well, that's where you are, but I'm not used to that.
Definitely put a different perspective on, on struggling to breathe and having shortness of breath.
Yeah.
The experience for me, going back to what you just said, everything what you was talking about is like, it was very eye-opening when you look at people that deal with asthma, people that are dealing with breathing issues, respiratory infections, that type of stuff.
Really?
But at the same time, I don't think that we should be pushing fear.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But
pushing that quote unquote agenda or that thought process. I don't think it's beneficial to anybody.
I think my aunt said it best. My aunt, she lives in New Mexico, and her kids don't want the vaccine, but she's older and she wants the vaccine. So she said, I ordered my vaccine from heaven, and I said, okay, God, the vaccine that you're going to give me is not going to have any side effects on my body. It's not going to have anything, so I'm neither for or against them. And I thought that was great that she said that, because depending on wherever you are, then you be in faith where you are. And that's how I see the whole COVID that we went through. Yes, for 4 days I didn't move out of my bed. That's just me. That's just where I was until my aunt was like, come on, and I know not that you were in fear, but at the same time, you could see my body dwindling because I just wouldn't eat. I mean, it didn't matter what somebody brought me. My mom brought me soup, and she's asking me, did you eat it? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you didn't eat that. Yes, I did.
Took a couple of bites.
Okay, but that's because I couldn't taste it. And for me, what happened was I actually took a bite of something, a cracker or something, and it tastes like a what did I say? A soggy, wet sock. And you're like, well, I've never put a soggy, wet sock in my mouth before. Okay, I'm just telling you, everything tastes like cardboard to me. So for me, anything that I put in my mouth was just like, type thing. And I know that was all mental, but that was me. That's where I was. So I really had to tell my body, oh, you're fixing to eat, and you're going to eat this, ensure.
Yeah, and I believe in speaking the word. I believe in speaking to your body and having authority over your body and having the authority over sickness and disease. Like I'm not anti that.
Which is why you're not coughing right now.
I am 100% that, but at the same time, I don't believe that if you're experiencing symptoms that you're out of faith, symptoms or whatever, I don't feel like you're out of faith.
No.
It's almost like someone that is dealing with cancer or somebody that's dealing with some other terminal illness.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily whose report you're going to believe. You can believe the doctor's report or God's report. I'm hearing what the doctor's saying, so now I know how to pray. I know what to believe. I know what to speak
to the mountain.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the biggest dangers that the church has, is that the church can get so wrapped up in the spiritual aspect of things that they negate the physical aspects of things or the quote unquote science aspect of things. Yeah. And I think that's where you have to have a balance in faith. Like you have to have, there's the natural things, there's the spiritual things, there's the emotional things, right? There's social, all these mental aspects, because that's how God created us. And I think that anytime you isolate one of those areas, when you silo the spiritual aspect or you isolate the mental or the emotional or the physical, you literally negate God's ability to work through you and for you, because you're not allowing literally the Word of God and the Spirit of God to minister to all aspects of
Yeah,
your life.
yeah.
We're multifaceted individuals. Like that's our being is that way. So we have our mental, we have our emotional, we have our social, we have our spiritual, right? Like emotion, all these different areas. And when you isolate, well, I'm just going to speak to the spiritual aspect, and you're not ministering, if you will, to these other areas, then it makes you weaker.
Yeah.
It's when you're able to. I mean, I was one of the articles I was reading is how people that are diagnosed or in the hospital because of COVID, they were taking 7 and 8 times longer, 10 times longer to recover when they weren't having physical touch. When somebody was not there giving them physical comfort.
Wow.
But people that were being allowed to have their loved ones come and sit with them and touch them and conversate with them and physically touch them, they were recovering almost 10 times faster
Wow.
than those that were not. And so when you think about that aspect, every person that's ended up in the hospital, like when you go to the hospital, it gets worse. Well, if you're isolated
Yeah.
from a physical and emotional standpoint, now you're not just dealing with the physical aspect. Now you're dealing with it mentally.
Yeah.
You're dealing it with emotionally,
Yeah.
socially,
Physically.
yeah, everything. And so to me, I feel like when the church or when science steps in and says, well, you can't have any physical contact. I mean, even in the old days, the leopards had people that were taking care of them, man. I mean, like, all the
He's
lepers.
a leper. Okay, hang all the lepers together.
Yeah, so, I mean, even they had somebody
Yeah.
taking care of them.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest takeaway is that as a society, if we get to a place where we get to a place where we isolate ourselves and the individuals that are walking through this or dealing with it, and I say just in general in any sickness, then we literally negate our ability to be able to help them to recover themselves and come out of that.
Yeah.
Because they're literally doing it alone.
Yeah.
And we were not created to be
be
alone.
alone. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
created to be with people.
Yeah.
And so that's my
I know. I love it. I love it.
big takeaway.
Our door was glass, So when people would bring stuff to the porch and leave it on the porch, I was like, hi, and look through the glass and wave, and that to me I was like, it's a face, type
Yeah.
thing. And I think for me, my biggest takeaway with this thing is, if you haven't dealt with these symptoms of COVID, you don't know. You don't know. You've not walked in someone's shoes, and not everybody's gonna be affected by it the same way. Everybody's walk is going to be different.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because this is what I thought about. And this has nothing to do with it, you guys, but I just thought it just kind of made me on there. But I was thinking about, if you've ever lived, which half of you or all of you probably have never, but if you, and not that we have, we just know somebody that has lived with someone that was dealing with crack. If you've never had that in your home or you've never dealt with it and lived with somebody that was addicted to crack, you would never know what they're dealing with. So you can't say, you'll be all right, You don't know.
Absolutely.
You've never lived there, right? You've never been through that. And to me, that's what made me think of it immediately when we were like, let's do this podcast, because some of you have not dealt with COVID. And again, knowing that a doctor said it's not if you're going to get it, it's when you're going to get it.
It changes your mindset. It
Yeah.
changes your perspective
Yeah.
because now you're thinking, man. And when you realize, to me, the strength behind this whole situation is realizing everyone that has survived.
Yeah, yeah.
The news,
Yeah.
social media
Tries to tell you about the
are-
death and about
like,
this
I'm not
and about
saying,
that.
and I'm not negating.
Yeah.
I'm not negating that
All
there's
those.
death and that there's
Yeah.
people that are dying from COVID. And all, I'm not belittling that. I'm negating. I'm not walking away from that at all.
Yeah.
I'm literally saying, whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to be focused on, right?
Yeah.
That's your outcome. So if you're focused on the death and the issues that are coming with COVID, then you're probably going to struggle a lot more.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking, I'm going to press through this, I'm
Yeah.
going to survive, I'm
Yeah.
going to be victorious
I
over
will
this,
survive.
then you're going to literally operate from that mindset.
Yeah.
But when everybody's telling you, go get vaccinated, if you don't get vaccinated, that you don't care about people, that's that's the wrong attitude. That's really manipulation.
Yeah.
If you say that you don't wear a mask, you don't care about anybody, that's manipulation. I think that if you understand the fact that it's like the flu, it's like having a common cold, it's like having diarrhea, it's like having a stomach virus. Well, not necessarily asthma.
Yeah.
A stomach virus.
Can't breathe.
No, but I'm saying when you talk, I'm referring to the
Okay.
different sicknesses and ailments that we deal with.
Okay.
Right. A stubbed toe, having a splinter. Like everybody has experienced what it's like to cut your fingernails too short.
Yeah.
Right? Or your toenail too short and that pain. Everybody understands this is what it feels like when you have diarrhea. This is what it feels like when you've eaten something wrong.
Yeah.
When you say, man, when you got the runs and you tell somebody, man, I got diarrhea, like there's hardly anybody on this planet that has not experienced that at some point in their life.
That's true.
So my point being is like, if you can get from the mindset, like going back to what you said, that doctor said, is like, you're going to get it. What are you going to do when you do? How are you going to respond when you do? I think that's the biggest thought process. I believe that if someone thinks that they're vaccinated, that they're not going to get it, I think you're living in a bubble because from what I understand, you're getting the vaccine, so you're literally put it in your body.
It's the same as the flu shot.
Yeah, and that's very good. It's just like the flu shot. So
they're putting influenza into
your
your body
body
so that you can build up antibodies against it to fight it when it does come and hit you.
So now
because it's going to hit you.
Right.
It's just that you get the flu shot to build
Lessen
them up, to lessen it.
So this is what I think is interesting when you say that.
Okay. Tell me.
And we'll finish with this.
Okay.
I think that if we can understand that the vaccine is not a cure-all,
Right.
it's literally just to prevent it.
Yeah.
Like
From
the flu
getting
shot.
it worse.
So we get the flu every year, calendar in the year. It's time to get your flu shot.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about that. We don't call it a vaccine.
But it is.
I understand that. We call it a flu shot. So if we can think in terms of the vaccination not being a
COVID
cure-all,
shot?
your COVID shot.
Are you going to get your yearly COVID shot?
That's see, it begins to lessen the threat, the lesson of the severity of it, and starts recognizing like it's the new flu, right? Like we're gonna have to deal with this, right? So I think that if you get the flu, then you get the flu. If you get the COVID, you get the COVID. If you like whatever that is, and I think that's where we have gotten to a place where we just literally, I just feel like we've just made this so big and so threatening that everybody's trying to feel like they have to pick sides.
I don't think anybody should pick sides, and that's not what this podcast was about. I think really we were just saying now that we've been through it, now that we've experienced it, now that we've walked in those shoes, we can understand some of those people that have breathing issues and some of those people that have fears and concerns of, am I going to make it if I get it? Now it makes me think differently for other people who can't breathe 100% all the time, all year
sure.
round.
Like if you've got already breathing issues,
Yeah.
this is probably going to hit you pretty hard.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt. You're going to feel it even more so than we did or anybody else.
But here's my last thing I want to say. I'm thankful for the vitamins that people brought us and the vitamin C and they were saying how important a multivitamin is for your body. And we know that we're homeopathic, so we like things that really help our body and to build up. But I think wisdom was so there because we've always taken echinacea anytime we get any kind of sinus infection or any kind of cold or anything like that. And immediately, that's what we started taking. As soon as I said, I think I'm getting a sinus infection, boom, boom, boom. We just started, taking the echinacea. And what that does is that builds up your body. It's
immune system.
Your immune system. It's the same as vitamin C and the same as airborne and the same as, thousands of milligrams of those things. And so that's what we did. We just kept pumping it in and pumping it in. And I think that too, as well as us speaking the word over the symptoms, not being heavy and our bodies being healed and us walking through that, I think that together helped us overcome. And the prayers from the people as well.
Oh, absolutely.
thank you again for your prayers. And sorry, I didn't mean to go long, but we missed you guys for the last 2 weeks. And I promise that we probably won't talk about this again. Hopefully not. But
I'm sure we will.
Well, we just wanted to make sure that you knew we were okay and where we stand. And just to let you know that if you're out there and you're dealing with asthma and, you're dealing with breathing issues of any kind, that you need to stay on top of.
Yeah, my concern. I say my concern. My suggestion is that if you're not experiencing any symptoms, if you're not haven't had COVID, haven't been tested positive, whatever. My suggestion is don't wait until you get to start taking vitamins and start building up your immune system. I would do it now. That way, it's already in your system. You're not playing catch up.
Yep.
That would be my only suggestion.
That's good. I love it.
Be proactive. Don't be reactive.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll come out of it
Ahead.
faster.
Yeah.
Faster, quicker. And that'd be my suggestion.
And again, thank you to whoever brought us anything.
All you guys, yeah,
we
absolutely.
are so thankful for a community that we have because it was
best
awesome.
folks.
Yes, it was. We did not starve, nor did we
That's
go
for sure.
thirsty. Everyone brought us water because that's what we needed. And shout out to Heather and Brian Thomas.
Yes, for watching.
Yeah,
Appreciate you guys.
We're so glad, and I know we got to see them. And let me tell y'all, I'm so thankful for y'all's vacation pictures because I thought we were on vacation with y'all. It was awesome. Anyway, love you guys, and so glad we're back. And we will see you again
Next Wednesday.
Bring your
Holla at you
family.
guys. We see you guys.
Yay! We
Peace
made
out,
it.
homie.
Thank you for listening to the Riverside Weekly. Download the Riverside Waco app to stay connected and follow us on all social media sites at the Riverside Waco. This podcast is made possible by the givers of Riverside Community Church. Production and engineering provided by Capital G and RTV in Waco, Texas.